So as we have heard already from previous speakers, that there can be many organisms that can affect the cornea, and we like to, for the purpose of laboratory investigation, divide them into viral and non-viral. And this course is about actually non-viral. The reason is we would like to investigate all patients who do not clinically look viral as one entity, because it could be affected with bacteria, fungus or parasites. So viruses need separate and special type of investigations. I always like to mention that what if you don't have a microbiology laboratory? We meet people, most people don't have. So it is not difficult to at least diagnose the 50% of the patients who have fungal keratitis. That instance was given by Dr. Garg, that more than 50% sometimes you have patients who have fungal keratitis. And in any laboratory, if you don't have a proper microbiology laboratory also, you can have for the direct observation of the corneal scrapings, which is the ideal sample from these patients, you can actually look for the fungal filaments in the corneal scrapings by just potassium hydroxide drop added onto the scraping, or you can also learn to do gram stain, which is very simple, and the stain is available in the market. You don't have to make gram stain. You just go to any of those chemistry shops and chemical shops. They will be having gram stain kit. The whole kit is available. So these minimum two things and a microscope which is hardly 30,000. It used to be just 20,000. Now I think currently it is around 29 or some thousand. One can have in the clinic, and you don't need a microbiology laboratory, and at least you can shoot for those 50% who you can be sure before you start the treatment that they are fungal. In a fully equipped microbiology laboratory, we would like to add to this direct observation method the isolation and characterization and antibiotic susceptibility of the organisms, and also we go for molecular evidence of the presence of the organisms wherever simple cultures are not possible to give all the results. I believe very firmly on the power of the direct microscopy, which I already mentioned to you, and I'm very fond of giving this example where a German patient who came very late in the evening, and we could see he had bilateral picture, the picture that is shown here, he had bilaterally present, and if you can see, this is a gram stain, and in this polymorphonuclear cell is having gram-negative cocci, and these gram-negative cocci are present everywhere in the field also. It's very easy to find them, and this is nothing but gonococcal keratitis. So the diagnosis was made within half an hour or 1 hour, and it is just on the basis of gram stain, which would not cost anything at all. Thus, we have many simple stains as well as differential stains for examination of corneal scrapings, which are listed here. I'll tell you the details as I go along. And I'd like to give another example where clinically one would think of this patient as a viral but there was a radial keratoneuritis, and what we saw in the corneal scraping, again, though we have written here as calcofluor white, you can see these cysts of acanthamoeba even in just potassium hydroxide, and there are many publications which support that, and we saw the cysts even in Giemsa stain. So this is another instance how the direct microscopy can give you the diagnosis. Similarly, nocardia, which is filaments, red filaments, you can see here, they are just by staining the same gram stain where you could not see any organisms. One can do the 1% acid fast stain. If you just clinically you suspect because of this pathognomonic feature where you have white beads at the edges of the ulcer, these have also been described in the literature. So if you clinically suspect and you feel that there might be nocardia, you can actually ask the microbiologist to do another stain over the gram stain. They can just decolorize the particular slide and do the acid fast stain and find this organism. Again, no culture you need to wait for. You can straight away start the specific treatment of amikacin 2.5% for these patients. Similarly, we have been able to find the presence of unstained filaments, unstained bacilli, and here very partially stained bacilli in a gram stain, and that gave us an idea that there could be mycobacteria. Again, 2.5% amikacin is a drug of choice. No culture needed. On the smear, you can make the diagnosis of mycobacterial infection. Usually the patients have we have seen patients with 2 months history or waxing and waning kind of a clinical course, and we just hit at it and we try to search in the gram stain whether there are unstained bacteria present there. And even if sometimes we don't see the unstained, we actually would like to stain with the 20% acid fast stain and find the presence of the mycobacteria. It has worked many times, and in fact it is only in ophthalmology, and in one of our publications that we describes this presence of unstained bacilli. In microbiology, no other systemic infection or any other kind of infection they have ever described about this. In this publication we showed that gram stain, Giemsa stain, potassium hydroxide with or without chalcofluoride are actually a good combination of stains to find out the presence of organisms in corneal scrapings. And you can see the sensitivity for fungi is very high, as well as for acanthamoeba, though the sensitivity for bacteria is not very good. It's only because the size of bacteria is very small and it's not very easy to detect them comparatively to fungi and acanthamoeba. Again, this direct examination of the corneal scraping is the one which helped us to find out about the presence of mycobacteria and what it means in ophthalmology. We were the first ones to describe from Hyderabad, LV Prasad Eye Institute, that microsporidia is present in Indian patients. And then it so happened that when we went to Bhubaneswar, we started seeing many cases with the features which were similar to adenovirus. Already it has been described to you. And here I would just draw your attention to the graph where from the season July to October, you have a peak every year. This is 3 years that we have seen, and every year it is happening. When rains start, patients start coming with features of keratoconjunctivitis, and when you scrape them, you find the presence of the spores in very, very large number. Unmistakably, they are present in the smears. We don't know yet whether adenovirus is also present along with them. What is the cycle in the nature that these patients are getting during the rainy season? All that needs to be worked out. We currently have a DBT project to work on that, but this is a clinical finding which we have established by now, and every year we are having sort of an epidemic in eastern India. And I'm told by friends that in northeast area, in Guwahati and those areas also where the rains are very heavy, people see patients like this. We already heard that microsporia sometimes can cause the stromal keratitis, the incidence of which is lesser than that of keratoconjunctivitis. The stromal keratitis is also diagnosed in similar way as we diagnose the keratoconjunctivitis by looking at the spores. And these spores are also stained very nicely with acid fast stain. So it helps to do the acid fast stain sometimes on the gram stain that we have done from the corneal scraping. Alright, now collection of sample from a corneal ulcer patient is one of the controversies which many people have. I have read articles where they collect with a swab. As far as I know, and from very large amount of evidence that is there, we should not be using swabs for collecting samples. It is always either Kimura spatula or it's a 15 number blade or some metal spatula that you have to take. And transport of the sample is also not recommended. There is only one paper from Madurai where they have checked the feasibility of using Amy's transport medium without charcoal, and they have said that it does not have any difference compared to direct inoculation. However, they also had to do scraping for smears using the blade. So you cannot do away with the blade, because in the swab you can imagine that the sample will get lost during processing. So this is just a schematic diagram of all that we do with corneal scrapings. You can make 3 smears, one for KOH with or without chalcofluoride gram stain, and this sometimes may not be done if you do not have enough of sample, and these are the media that we inoculate for the processing of samples, which would allow us to get bacteria, fungus as well as acanthamoeba. Inoculation of tissue is done when you are actually handling a case where you have done PK. The corneal button can also be submitted to the laboratory and processed. We go by the criteria of significance when it comes to determining the significance of the cultures. So if the growth is confluent on a solid medium, there is growth in more than one medium, or there is consistency with a smear examination, or we have been able to get the same organism twice, we consider it significant. Antibiotic susceptibility is done using the disc diffusion method in most laboratories, and MIC nowadays has become easier to determine with the help of what is called e-test, where we have a strip which is commercially available and it has a different concentrations of the antibiotics, so one can find out the MIC. So no more it is difficult to find out MIC even in a routine laboratory. Identification of bacteria and fungi is a business of the microbiologist, but it doesn't hurt to know something about them so that you can argue with the microbiologists. And what we do for identification of fungi is mainly to look at the type of colony morphology on the SDA and even on blood agar. Now here we show you that the same Aspergillus flavus has grown on SDA, that is Sabros dextrose agar, and also on chocolate agar. So it's not that you always need SDA for the isolation of the fungus. It can grow on blood agar and chocolate agar, and they grow very fast. The fungi which cause corneal ulcers are very fast growing. We in fact published a paper where we showed that the fungus grows very fast on blood agar, and it grows actually more on blood agar than on SDA. But this could be because when we collect the sample, we first inoculate blood agar and then we go to other media. So it is possible that more of sample comes on the first medium, which grows the fungus better. These are some of the species of fungi. Only after identification you can name them. These are the dematiaceous black fungi, and these are the bacteria. These have already been told to you. Alright, nowadays it is possible to actually have automated methods for identification of bacteria as well as fungi, and one example is API. Some of your microbiologists may claim, they may charge you more for culture by saying that I'm using API for identification of the bacteria or fungus, especially yeast, and then you need to understand what exactly they are doing and why are they charging so. When it comes to identification of acanthamoeba, is totally different. We don't have to grow, colonies don't grow from acanthamoeba. They just are, the sample is inoculated on non-nutrient agar, where we put an overlay of Escherichia coli, which is a bacteria. Every lab can very easily get Escherichia coli, and so it is not at all difficult to grow acanthamoeba. So the organism grows on the surface of the plate, and we need to examine the plate under the microscope to be able to recognize. And this is again a very simple method which many people have sent their technicians to my lab. You can just send the technician for a week and we can show them so that they learn how it looks, and then they go back and they are able to find the presence of these organisms. So it's not at all difficult. Now, a few words about molecular methods where one knows that, as this slide will show you here, we have done everything that is possible for 1,452 patients, and we find that nearly 40% of the patients there was no growth, but there was infection clinically. So we do feel that we might be missing some organisms by the methods that we are following, and only way to find more organisms or to find out those missing ones is probably by molecular methods which allow us to detect the DNA of the organisms and also identify them. These methods are highly sensitive and specific. They are rapid as well. And this slide is just to show you, I think it's not coming, yeah, this is just to show you that the DNA of an organism can be amplified several fold when you do PCR, and then the laboratory has methods to detect the presence of such DNA. What are the advantages? It rules out infective etiology because it is very sensitive, and it gives a reliable confirmation and possibility of finding an unusual organism. If you keep on doing the same methods that always has been done and is being done all the time, you are unlikely to find something new. And also, let's say like Microsporidia, I forgot to mention that cannot be culture. Microsporidia, they do not grow in culture. So if you tell me from far off that I have seen in the smear, then from far, if the photo is not very clear to me, I would say you give me some more sample, I'll do PCR. So PCR becomes a supportive test to say what you have subjectively seen in the smear. So it is very useful to establish the new organisms that we are likely to find in our patients, and it definitely confirms the presence of organisms which are difficult to confirm by all other methods. Diagnostic PCR in microbiology laboratory is either it is developed by us or we have some kits available. It is required when clinical validation is lacking, and nowadays, even in spite of doing PCR, there are not many studies which have validated this test. There are problems of false positives, there are problems of PCR inhibitors. It's not that it's very simple, but there is a technique called sequencing. So we also can sequence the DNA that we amplify, and we can actually find out the type of species that we are dealing with. And there is another technique called real-time PCR, which actually quantifies the DNA that is present in the sample of a particular organism. So these are some of the modifications. In case of fungal keratitis, there are many papers. Very nice paper from RP Center is there, and there are some published from Aravind Eye Hospital also. We have published some papers too, where they say that one can look for fungi in the corneal scrapings using the PCR method, but all of them say that it should only be used as an adjunct, where the KOH can give you an identification and it can give you the diagnosis. In 90% of cases, the need for PCR is not justified. So it is not really required, but we still do that, especially for actually identification of the species of fungi, and not really for diagnosis in the clinic. These are some of the details I'll skip through, which are details about types of PCR for fungal keratitis. We in our laboratory have evaluated 3 types with 3 different primers, and we find that it is the ITS primer which is the best one for looking for fungus in clinical samples or from the eye. This is about non-sporeal. As I told you, the fungus is identified based on its spores. So there are a large number, almost 16 to 20% of fungi in the laboratory, we don't find any spores. So we don't know what they are. In that case also PCR helps us. By sequencing we can find out which species of fungus, and currently we have a CSIR project under which we are trying to do for 200 fungal isolates which are unidentifiable otherwise, what kind of species they are. And for that also we use the sequencing of ITS1 and ITS2. Microsporidia, already mentioned to you that PCR is required for supporting the microscopy findings. Again, for similar reasons, for acanthamoeba we do not recommend PCR, because the diagnosis just by smear examination and culture is very high. Just one word about a DNA chip which has become available for diagnosis of eye infections in a laboratory called Exciton in Bangalore. One can send samples to them from any eye sample actually, and they can look for various types of organisms using the DNA chip. So it makes it easier for you. This is how the chip looks. It is meant for different diagnoses, and one for keratoconjunctivitis has for HSV, and it has for chlamydia trachoma and adenovirus. We are hoping that microsporidia can be added onto this chip. And the chip is actually, this is a real picture of that. It gives you just a brown dot over that which says it is positive, and it is done by the company, and they send you the report by email. Finally, the important tips are that the collection using spatula or blade, ensuring minimum loss, direct processing of the samples, and to know somewhat about the organism because from literature, and then try to guide the microbiologist, and prolonged incubation of media these are the very important things for diagnosis of corneal ulcers, non-viral microbial keratitis in the microbiology laboratory. Thank you very much for your attention.